All right, so, man, we got a lot to talk about today. Tim Brown comes out and lets the world know that Canelo Alvarez turned down a fight with Errol Spence Jr. at a catch weight of 64 for $55 million. Now, this is the thing. This is actually nothing new. We heard about this months ago on the Boxing Voice when they interviewed David Benavidez's manager. The only thing that people didn't know was the offer for Errol Spence. So in all actuality, this information is old. But what's new is the whole Errol Spence thing. See, you knew they offered him $100 million for David Benavidez and Jamal Charlo, but what you didn't know was the $55 million offer for Errol Spence. Now, where does this leave us? What does everybody find out by finding out this? Number one, okay, this lets you know that they were never going to make the Terrence Bud Crawford Errol Spence fight. It was never in the play. Who knows that I was right this whole time? Terrence Bud Crawford was not on the menu. Just like Errol Spence said when he ran down what Al Heyman told him. They ran down everybody's name on that list, but Terrence Bud Crawford. Terrence Bud Crawford was not included in the plan. They don't care about Undisputed. They never wanted Errol Spence to fight Terrence Bud Crawford. And do you want to know why? Because this whole time, they've been prepping up Errol Spence for Canelo Alvarez. This whole thing is about chasing Canelo Alvarez. And by just releasing this right here, I figured out the whole damn thing. It was like an epiphany. Now you can see everything that's going on. I see so clear. I see so clear. All right. So we now know that the Terrence Bud Crawford fight was never something that they were trying to do. Now this makes total sense why Errol Spence was ignoring Terrence Bud Crawford. All this across the street shit and all this. Errol Spence knew that this was the plan all along. Terrence Bud Crawford was never part of the plan. Never. Okay? That is a fact now. So there's no going back and forth. It's not who wanted to fight. It's not percentages. It's not across the street. And even before you even can get to any of that stuff, first and foremost, it was never supposed to happen because it was never into play. Now, put on your thinking caps, right? All right. Why are we finding this out now? And from the mouth of Tim Brown, of all people. If you don't know what Tim Brown does over there at PBC, my bad, Tom Brown. Tom Brown is the matchmaker over there at PBC. He's the one that matches these fights up. So when you seeing Gervonta Davis versus Rolly Romero, when you seeing Charlo versus Harrison, when you seeing all that, that's Tom Brown. This is his matchmaking, okay? So the question is, why are you finding out about this now? And then from Tom Brown, of all people, the reason why you are finding out about this now is because they want you to know about it now. This did not come out on accident. They want to make it look like it did, but it didn't, okay? Keith Thurman saying what he said about fighting Terrence Bud Crawford and having that person fight Errol Spence for Undisputed. That's also no accident. That's also done on purpose. You say, well, Bruce, what is the point? Okay? It's to shift your attention away from the Errol Spence, Terrence Bud Crawford fight. Because they're hoping the boxing fans is going to take up the mantle and start jumping on Canelo's case for not taking the fight with Errol Spence, because they are now at the door of the undisputed fight with Terrence Bud Crawford. So they're using Canelo Alvarez and his notorious reputation for ducking to try to change the scenario and the tide and your thinking patterns to switch over to, oh, see, Canelo didn't duck this person. Canelo been a cherry pie champion. All right, that's nothing new. Canelo, at this point in time, is strictly being used for a scapegoat, okay? The reason why they put that shit out there now is because they don't want pressure on making this fucking fight, because it's not a fight that they want to make. Why? Because Terrence Bud Crawford is all wrong. I'm going to say that again. Terrence Bud Crawford is all wrong. Why is Terrence Bud Crawford all wrong? Number one, he's a threat. Number two, he's a legitimate. You know, he's a legitimate badass, a legitimate throwback fighter. Okay? The other problem is he's a free agent. The other problem with that, he's from a little old place called Omaha. Okay? Which doesn't have a lot of boxing fan support. Okay? He's everything wrong. And he's everything that PBC does not want. Because with him being this free agent, there's nowhere for them to hide anymore. They don't want that. With him being a free agent, they also recognize this is somebody that can actually beat our guy. Our guy who we've been saving to sell to Canelo Alvarez. All this is about selling to Canelo Alvarez, because all this is about targeting a specific demographic in boxing in which they believe supports the sport the most and who spends the money and shows these guys the revenue. Okay? This is why this whole thing is about chasing Canelo Alvarez, because at the end of the day, they do not have faith in the black fight fans' dollar. Everybody is going for the Latin market. That's all it is at the end of the day. And Terrence Bud Crawford is out of place. He's what's everything wrong with the situation. Okay? He's a threat. He's legit. He's free. He can do whatever he wants. And he can beat our guy. That's everything wrong. So, their plan was to put this information out there so you guys get thrown off track about the Eroll Spence Terrence Bud Crawford fight and instantly go into bickering about how Canelo Alvarez turned down a fight with Eroll Spence. Now, if you're trying to set up a fight with Eroll Spence and Canelo Alvarez, was you ever trying to make a Terrence Bud Crawford fight? Let me ask you, as a business person, if you knew that you were prepping this guy up for a Canelo Alvarez fight, do you see yourself taking a risk with him fighting somebody who we all know possibly and more than likely could beat this guy? Do you think that fight will be more when Eroll Spence is undefeated or defeated? You tell me. Of course, the fight is worth more if Eroll Spence is undefeated. And since they've been chasing Canelo all along, were they ever trying to make the Terrence Bud Crawford fight? No. Not at no point in time. So all this back and forth fans was doing about who wants this, who needs that, percentages and splits like that, it makes everybody look dumb, because it was never part of the plan. The goal has always been Canelo. It has always been Canelo. Now you can understand why Jermall Charlo boxing resume looks like it does. You want to know why? Because over there at PBC, they're doing for Jermall the same thing that they did for Leo Santa Cruz. Why was Leo Santa Cruz left to be alone and be a champion and fight whoever he want? Because Al Heyman was preserving him. For who? A Gervonta Tank Davis fight. Okay? Al Heyman is preserving Jermall Charlo as part of the baiting process and the offering process to a Canelo Alvarez. This is all about chasing Canelo. Because at the end of the day, they don't have faith in your spending power when it comes to this fight, so they rather sell out to Canelo. Like I said, it's a lot to talk about. This reveals a lot of stuff. So it's no mystery that they come out and they tell you this now. You think that's an accident? No. They strategically chose to release this information about Eroll Spence to help die down the buzz and the talk about Eroll and Terrence Bud Crawford.